Few figures in Christian history have been as fascinating and as misunderstood as Mary Magdalene. Say her name, and most people immediately picture a weeping, repentant woman, probably a prostitute, kneeling at Jesus' feet. But that image didn't come from the Bible. It came from centuries of storytelling, sermons, and eventually Hollywood. The actual Mary Magdalene in the text is a very different woman, and honestly, a far more interesting one. So who was she really? Let's take a closer look, starting with what the earliest sources actually say, and then uncovering how history slowly reshaped her into someone else entirely. Before getting into all the details, it's actually worth slowing down for a second and asking a simple question. Why does any of this even matter? Why does it make a difference whether Mary Magdalene was a prostitute or a devoted disciple? Because the way a religious community remembers its earliest people shapes everything, how it sees leadership, authority, and especially the role of women. If Mary Magdalene was really a central figure in Jesus' circle, then changing or downplaying that story isn't a small shift. It has ripple effects that can last for centuries, and that's exactly why people keep coming back to her story. Scholars, historians, and everyday curious readers all sense that something important is going on here. So what do the earliest sources actually say? The best place to start is with the four Gospels: Gospel of Matthew, Gospel of Mark, Gospel of Luke, and Gospel of John. These are the core texts of Christianity, and all of them mention Mary Magdalene. We are first introduced to her as a follower of Jesus. One of the clearest moments comes in Luke, where we're told that Jesus traveled from town to town, not just with his 12 disciples, but also with a group of women, and Mary Magdalene is named first. That detail matters. It suggests she was a leading figure among them. The text also says she had been healed from 7 demons. That might sound strange to modern ears, but in that context, it likely points to some kind of severe suffering or illness that she had been freed from. And these women weren't just tagging along, they were supporting Jesus' work out of their own resources. In other words, they had means, independence, and an active role in the movement. Then comes the crucifixion. When things got dangerous, most of the male disciples disappeared. But Mary Magdalene didn't. She was there, watching from a distance, named specifically in multiple accounts. That kind of loyalty, especially in a moment like that, says a lot about who she was. She also stayed involved after his death. She saw where Jesus was buried, and after the Sabbath, she returned to the tomb to perform burial customs. But when she got there, something was different. The stone had been rolled away. And then comes the moment that really changes everything. In the account given in the Gospel of John, Mary Magdalene becomes the first person to encounter the risen Jesus. She's standing outside the tomb, grieving, when she sees someone she assumes is a gardener. And then he speaks her name. And suddenly she recognizes him. Her response, Rabboni, meaning teacher, is one of the most personal and emotional moments in the entire story. And then next, Jesus sends her to tell the others. Think about that for a second. The first person entrusted with announcing the resurrection is Mary Magdalene. That's why, later on, some early Christians gave her a title in Latin, Apostle to the Apostles, because it described exactly what she did. She was the one who carried the message. She was the first witness. And that's what makes the next detail so easy to misunderstand. That line about 7 demons. And it's one of those phrases people tend to read a lot into. It sounds dramatic, so over time people started assuming it must point to some kind of wild or sinful past. But that's not actually what the text says. In the first century Jewish world, what they called demon possession was often their way of describing physical or mental illness. In other parts of the Gospels, people who are blind, paralyzed, or suffering in different ways are sometimes described using that same kind of language. So when Luke says Mary Magdalene had 7 demons, it's most likely pointing to how serious her condition was, not her character. And that number 7? It usually just means completeness or intensity. In simple terms, she had been really unwell, and she was healed. What's important is what the text doesn't say. It never calls her immoral. It never says she lived a sinful life. There's no story of her repenting for some kind of past behavior. That whole idea just isn't there. And this is where a lot of the confusion begins. The Gospels don't say Mary Magdalene was a prostitute. They don't connect her to the unnamed woman in Luke who washes Jesus' feet with her tears. They also don't say she's the same person as Mary of Bethany, the sister of Lazarus. These are three completely different women in the text, but later on their stories started getting blended together. So if the Bible doesn't say she was a prostitute, where did that image come from? Over time, different Christian communities told her story in different ways. Some early writings actually held her in very high regard, as someone close to Jesus and important in the early movement. There wasn't just one fixed version of who she was. The big shift came in the year 591. That's when Pope Gregory I gave a sermon that ended up shaping how people would see Mary Magdalene for centuries. In that sermon, he combined three separate women into one: Mary Magdalene, the unnamed, sinful woman, and Mary of Bethany. From that point on, the image stuck. And to be fair, he wasn't trying to mislead anyone. He was doing what many preachers do, trying to bring different stories together into one clear, powerful message. The idea of a repentant sinner became meaningful to a lot of people. It represented redemption, second chances, and transformation. But there was a trade-off. In the process, the version of Mary Magdalene we actually see in the Gospels started to fade into the background. Interestingly, not all of Christianity went in that direction. In the Eastern traditions, especially in the Eastern Orthodox Church, Mary Magdalene was never turned into that combined figure. Instead, she continued to be honored, sometimes even called equal to the apostles. Her role as the first witness to the resurrection stayed front and center. So you end up with two very different portrayals of the same person, depending on which tradition you look at. In more recent times, scholars have gone back to the original text and started to separate history from tradition again. The Roman Catholic Church itself made a quiet but important change in 1969, officially separating Mary Magdalene from that unnamed, sinful woman. It was basically an acknowledgement that the earlier blending wasn't accurate. And then in 2016, Pope Francis took it a step further by elevating her feast day and referring to her again as Apostle to the Apostles. That's a pretty strong statement about how she's now being understood. On top of that, many modern scholars have spent years re-examining her role. And what keeps coming through is a much clearer picture: Mary Magdalene as a real leader. Beyond the four Gospels, there are actually quite a few early Christian writings that didn't end up in the New Testament. These were texts used by different communities in the first few centuries, and they give us a glimpse into how varied early Christianity really was. One of the most interesting of these is the Gospel of Mary. It was discovered in Egypt in the 1800s, but it dates back to around the 2nd century. And in this text, Mary Magdalene shows up as someone with real spiritual authority. In that account, she's portrayed as a disciple who receives deeper teachings from Jesus and then shares them with the others. What's especially interesting is that not everyone in the story is comfortable with that. At one point, Peter questions whether Jesus would really give that kind of authority to a woman, while another disciple steps in to defend her. Now, it's important to be clear here, this text was written later than the Gospels we talked about earlier, but it still matters because it shows us that there were early Christian communities that saw Mary Magdalene as an important figure. There are other texts too, like the Gospel of Philip, which also talks about her in a close relationship with Jesus. It even calls her his companion, which has led to a lot of speculation over the years. But when scholars look at the original language, that word doesn't necessarily mean anything romantic. It can simply mean a close associate or partner in a spiritual sense. So while these texts are more mystical and come from different traditions, they all point in the same general direction. Mary Magdalene was seen as someone with influence, insight, and authority. And that's interesting because it lines up with what we already saw in the Gospels. Now, if you fast forward to modern times, Mary Magdalene shows up again, but in a very different kind of story. In 2003, Dan Brown released the novel The Da Vinci Code, and it completely changed how millions of people thought about her. The book suggested that she wasn't just a follower of Jesus, but his wife, and that she carried his child, eventually escaping to France where their bloodline continued in secret. It's a gripping story, but it's still fiction. Historians were quick to point out that these ideas aren't supported by the Gospels or by reliable early Christian sources. Most of it is built on much later legends and speculation. It makes for a great thriller, but not solid history. That said, it does connect to something real because there actually is a long-standing tradition in southern France that Mary Magdalene ended up there later in life. In a town called Saint-Maximin-la-Sainte-Baume, there's a basilica that claims to hold her skull as a sacred relic. Every year people visit, and on her feast day the relic is displayed. It's been part of local tradition for centuries. Is it really hers? Almost certainly not. Relics from the medieval period are incredibly hard to verify, and multiple places claim to have remains connected to her. But the tradition itself tells us that her story had a powerful impact. It spread far beyond its original setting and took on a life of its own in different cultures. And when you step back and look at everything together, a clearer picture starts to form. So, was she an apostle or a misrepresented disciple? Honestly, she was a real disciple whose story got reshaped over time. The earliest texts are actually pretty consistent. Mary Magdalene followed Jesus, supported his work, stayed through his crucifixion, witnessed where he was buried, and became the first person to announce that he had risen. That last role alone gives her a unique place in Christian history. What happened later? The whole repentant sinner image developed over centuries. And to be fair, that version of her story meant something to people. It gave hope. It showed that change and forgiveness are possible. But it also came at a cost. It covered over who she actually was. So, what do you think? Has Mary Magdalene been misunderstood all along, or is there still more to uncover about her story? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed this, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.